Hi and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Franco Trimboli, Head of Product here at Whispir. Thank you for your time today. So today I'll be taking you through how you can use Whispir to more effectively manage your event invitations and appointment reminders. We'll be covering two core features, namely rich messaging and bulk sending. I'll be demonstrating how your organization can use the power of Whispir's rich messaging to provide a great user experience to your staff and customers, which in turn leads to a quantified increase in event and appointment attendance. And in addition to that, it also reduces the amount of effort it takes you and your organization to capture attendee responses. Okay, so why rich messaging? For those of you who have not yet experienced what a rich message is, here's how they work. And I'll bring my phone up on the screen here. So your customers and stakeholders will receive an SMS and email notification. So I'll bring up an SMS message that I've received here. You can see that I've received an SMS. And one of the things you'll notice is that it includes a URL. When I click on this URL, it then launches my web browser and loads up what we call a Whispir rich message. Now, a rich message works just like a small interactive web application. So the advantage here is that you can not only display rich data, but also capture rich data. So you can see here I have a video, I have an interactive map, and I've also got the opportunity to solicit a response, which is perfect for event invitations and reminders. In addition to that, you can also capture, rather than just textual responses, you can capture other types of responses, such as an NPS score, which is perfect for not only inviting people to an event or an appointment, but as a follow-up to understand the actual quality of that particular experience. The other thing that you'll notice here, just like SMS and email within Whispir, is that you can actually customize this message and include personalization as well. So let's dive into Whispir and get started. So the first thing I'll do is sign into my account in Whispir. And once I've signed in, I'll then go to my workspace menu. And under my workspace menu, you'll see that I've got an option to access rich messages via the Rich Message Studio. Now, this is the place where you craft and send your rich messages and access the template library. So what I'll do is I'll click on New Rich Message to begin. Now, rather than create a template from scratch, we can actually use an example of an event invite within our template library. And the way you do that is you click on Choose a Template from the library. That will then load up the actual template library, and you'll see that there's a number of categories on the left-hand side that allow you to quickly browse templates by type. Now, the template that you're looking for is actually a marketing template, so I'll click on marketing, and that will then filter the templates that we can then view. And the one that I'm interested in is this marketing event invitation template. Anyone who has access to the Whispir platform will have access to the library, and if you're following us today, you'll be able to actually click on the template library, click on marketing, and then load up one of these event invitations to follow me in terms of the actual demo today. So the first thing I'll do is click on preview, and preview will show me a sample of what the message will look like across a number of different channels. So you can see here that we have an SMS message, a rich email, and also a web message. And the web content is the actual rich message that is delivered to mobile and email devices. The great thing about this as well is you see both the desktop and mobile views of the actual template that you're going to be sending out. So let's get started with this. I'll click on Use this template, and this will then load up the template into the edit screen. And you can see here that as I browse those particular channels, I can see the event invitation within the mobile channel, within the email channel, and within the web channel. So the first thing I want to do is start editing the details of this particular event. So the way that you do that is by hovering over the various sections within the actual web content. These items are known as components, and rich messages are made up of these modular sections. So editing a component is really easy. So the way that I do that is by simply clicking on the edit icon, or just tapping on the actual component. And what actually happens here is that when I click on that particular component, I can now edit that information on the right-hand side. So I can then edit some of these details, and I can remove particular components, and you'll notice that it updates on the left-hand side. If I want to change the address, it's really quite straightforward. I can then quickly type in the details. I can then add details such as changing the time and date. So I can say it's from 7 till 9 p.m. And you'll notice that when I update content here, it updates over here. And of course, the date's incorrect, so I'll say that it's the 31st of May. It's as simple as that to edit a component. In addition to that, you can not only edit the textual components within this message, you can also edit things such as the actual image as well. So I can click on the replace button and select an updated image from within my image library. Or alternatively, I can upload a new one. So it's really quite straightforward to edit this particular template to suit your needs. One of the great things about this as well is that some of these components are interactive too. So rather than just send someone an email or SMS as a reminder, you can provide actionable content right here in the message. So here's where the power of rich messaging really shows through. So if I want to request someone's attendance, it's really easy. You'll see here that there's a select option that does exactly that. So this particular component asks people if they'd be attending, and if I click edit, you'll see that we provide two options. Yes, I will be attending, or no, I will not be attending. So it's really quite straightforward for you to add an additional options. You can have maybe, I'll get back to you. And that will add an additional third option for someone to actually select from this select list. Now, if I want to capture something like a dietary requirement for this particular event, it's also quite straightforward as well. I can click on this particular item here, and I can see that there's a number of options that are provided for the person: gluten-free, diabetic, low salt, or vegan. I might put an additional option here to say egg-free, and a sixth option to say I have no allergies. There's also another option here that says, would you like to bring a colleague or friend? Now, this may not necessarily be suitable for your particular event. So I can either change that as required, so I can potentially go in there and change the question to something else. Or alternatively, if I don't necessarily need to capture any additional information, I can delete this component. It's really quite straightforward to do that. I can remove it by hovering over the component and clicking on the delete trash can, which will then allow me to delete the component. So it's really quite straightforward to edit the data that you're capturing. Now, of course, with components, you've got the ability to add new components on the right-hand side. So if I want to add an additional image or want to add a resource like a PDF for a menu, it's quite easy for me to drag and drop a new component into this section and then add content as I need to. We actually have a webinar and a tutorial that we will link to in this webinar if you'd like to know more about rich messaging. One of the great things about rich messaging as well, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can provide not only content to capture information, you can also provide interactive content as well. And one of the, I guess, core problems of any appointment reminder or invitation is knowing how to get to that particular event or that particular location. So you can see up here that we're asking people to go to the Washington Center, which is a conference center. And if I want to provide details of the address, it's quite straightforward. I can just simply type them in here. So I can say it's 705 Pike Street, Seattle, and then that will load up as a map. I've also got the ability to route people to their particular location as well if needs be. Okay, great. Now that I'm satisfied with these details, it's quite straightforward for me to send this message as well. So I can click on my send button, and I can then select who I want to send this message to. So I can send this to people within my address book. I can send it to ad hoc mobile numbers. I can send it to email addresses, or any combination of those three. So what I'll do at the moment is click on the to button, and that will bring up my address book. And that will enable me to select the people I want to send this particular invitation to. In reality, I could have selected hundreds or thousands of people within my organization or customer base using a combination of either static or dynamic distribution lists. So there's really no limit on how many people you can send this message to. But for today's particular demo, I'm going to select these three recipients here and click OK. And then click on the send button to send the message. Okay, so there's my message. It's being sent out. And if I launch up my mobile phone, you'll see that I've now just received a new message, a marketing invitation with a rich URL message. And then when I click on that particular URL, you'll see the contents of that message come through. So you can see here it says, upcoming event invitation. Hi, Franco. We would love to see you at our upcoming customer event. You can see here that I've provided the details, time and date. I've then got the particular details in terms of the time, and then I can RSVP by simply selecting the options. So I can tap on that select list, and you'll see that that third option now exists. I can select yes, no, or maybe. So for this particular event, I will select yes, and then I can select if there's any dietary requirements. So I can say that I'm actually looking to reduce my salt intake, so I'll select low salt. And it's quite straightforward for me to submit that. I can click on the submit form button, and then that will send that message back to Whispir. So in addition to that, you'll now see that I also have the map below, which shows me how to get to the Washington State Convention Center, and it's at 705 Pike Street, Seattle. So if I had enabled routing on that particular rich message, I would then have had a little map that shows me how to get to this particular location, which is great. So it's as simple as that. It only takes a few minutes to use our Whispir template library to select an existing event invitation and craft up quite a compelling invite to not only your staff, but also customer base. So now that I want to know who has actually sent that message, I want to see who's actually coming to this particular event. What I can do is go back into Whispir and hover over my workspace menu and click on my messages action. That will then show me all the messages that have been sent out in this particular workspace. And I can see here that I've received one reply. And so to see the responses, I click on my status button, which will show me the status of who's been sent the message or acknowledge the message by a response. So I can view a detailed response report, and I can see here that Franco Trimboli has indeed responded to that message. If I want to see what Franco said, it's really quite straightforward. I can then hover up the top here and click on the message response action, and then view the details of that response by then clicking on this detailed report. You can see here that Franco has responded. He will be attending, and that he's looking as part of his dietary requirements to have a low salt meal. You can also filter the list by clicking on this particular search field here as well. So if I click on yes, for instance, if I type yes, for instance, and click on search, I can see that one person is coming. I can also search for other items such as low salt or just salt, which will then return to me if anyone's got any specific dietary requirements in relation to salt. So that's quite useful to be able to filter the list dynamically and in real time. Now, I can actually act on this information as well. So for anyone who has responded yes, for instance, I can then click on, I can see I've got one match at the top here. I can then show those individuals, send a follow-up message if anything has occurred or if anything has changed, or alternatively, I can export this data by clicking on the report button. And the great thing about exporting this data is I can export more information about this contact if I have created this contact information within my Whispir contact database. So here, this particular field's a first name, last name, but if I'd like to get the organisation name or the job title for this particular contact, I can most certainly add that if required. I can then see when they acknowledge the message, and I can extract their response. When I click on export, that will then generate a spreadsheet file, an export file that will then allow me to then act on that data outside the Whispir platform, or alternatively import that in. You can see here it's quite straightforward. I've got Franco Trimboli, I've got his web acknowledge time and his response data. So that's really quite easy. All right, so now let's talk about sending at scale. So the example that I've showed you today is perfect for a meeting or an event where there's just one location and one time. So if you're sending a single message out to thousands of people, it's relatively straightforward to just craft up that message within the actual Rich Message Studio and then send that out to a large group of individuals. But let's say that I want to send out an individual appointment reminder, or even something as a bit more complex as a job dispatch reminder. This approach doesn't work that well because you will need to create a template for each person who receives that message. You'll need to populate things like the location, the time, so on and so forth. So that being said, there's another feature that I'd like to talk about today called bulk messaging, which is perfect for doing exactly that. So what is bulk messaging? Well, bulk messaging allows you to populate data within Whispir using a plain text or CSV file. And this data can be appointment or job information, and it can be extracted from your network drive or internal business system, and it can dynamically populate any of that information within a message. And when coupled with rich messaging over multiple channels, it becomes really, really powerful. So let's see how it works. And one way of exploring rich messaging is hovering over the menu and then clicking on the bulk message action. And what that does, it loads up the bulk message feature and it presents you with a simple 4-step wizard. So the first thing you need to do is create a CSV file so that you can import this data into the Whispir platform. And just like the template library, we've got an example that you can start with. And you'll see here that the first step is to download the example template to your computer. So if you click on that particular link, you'll see that it will download the Whispir example CSV file. And by clicking on that, it will then load up that particular CSV file within your favorite spreadsheet editor. In this case, it's Microsoft Excel. And you'll see here that we've already provided you with a sample set of data that you can then go in there and edit. The great thing about bulk messaging is that you can include any textual information, and that textual information will be populated into the message of your choice. So this particular example is specifically about how you can populate job information into a simple job dispatch message. But instead of actually sending out a job dispatch, we want to edit this particular spreadsheet so that we can include appointment information and contact details for a particular person. So we've got first name, last name, John Smith, but instead of next shift, we'll put in details of the event. We'll then include an address. We'll then include where the particular location is. We'll then have a time. We'll then include a date. One of the other things you'll notice is that we're also capturing the mobile and email contact data of this particular contact. So the important thing about bulk messaging is not only are we capturing the information that is going to be delivered to a particular recipient in terms of their first name, last name, and details of the message, we can also capture their mobile and email data as well. So you'll see here that I can include the mobile data for John Smith, so I can put in his mobile number and I can put in John Smith's email. But first, let's put in the details. So the details of this particular event might be a customer success event, and it is at the Washington Center, and it is at 702 Pike Street, Seattle, and it starts at 2 p.m. and it's on the 31st of May 2016, and it's as simple as that. I might want to include an additional recipient here, so I can include Casey Waters, and rather than say it's a customer success event, I can say that it's a customer training session, and that'll be at Whispir headquarters. It's at 360 On Street, Melbourne. I can say that's starting at 4 p.m. on the 1st of January, sorry, the 1st of June, I should say, 2016. And I can include his mobile number in there as well and his email address. So it's as simple as that, to create multiple lines of data that will then dynamically populate within a message. Now, I'm not limited to only 2 recipients. I could potentially include thousands of recipients in here. Per file, we support up to 25,000 individual recipients and a file size of 10 megabytes. So at most, you can send this message out to 25,000 individuals. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're restricted to just 25,000 recipients. You could potentially send multiple messages out with 5,000 or 6,000 recipients each. The important thing is that you save this file as a CSV. So I'll save this as a CSV as well. So I just click on save. I'll then get a warning to say, would you like to save this as CSV? That's perfectly fine. Click on continue, and now that's saved. Now when I go back to Whispir, I can now select this file and upload it into the Whispir platform. So when I do that, I can then click on next, and you'll see that Whispir automatically picks up the mobile and email channels that I've included within that CSV file. If Whispir hasn't picked those up, you can just quickly modify that by selecting the drop-down and then the appropriate field that includes the mobile or email address information. Once I've done that, I can click on the next button. That will then bring up the message composition screen, so I can start composing a message from scratch. So I can say an invitation. What I can then do is I can then start composing my message. I can say hi, and then what I'd like to do is personalize this message and use the data from within that CSV file to populate that content. And the way that I do that is by simply clicking on one or more of these buttons. So I can say hi, first name, last name. We would like you to attend the details at address on the date. So it's simple as that to include content within the CSV file. And one of the things you'll notice is that we use what's known as message variables. Those message variables, what we call AT variables. So they map to the actual headings within your CSV file. So it's as simple as using the headings within your CSV file and including these AT variables. So when I go next, I can then preview this particular message. And so step 4 allows me to preview this message. And you'll see at the top here, I've got the ability to select the various recipients. So if I click on recipient 1, you'll see here that I've done a bit of a mistake. I've put the last name instead of the first name, so I can go back and change that. So I can go back, and then I can change that and include first name. Actually, I'll get rid of last name. We just need the first name there. I can go next. I can go and preview that, and you'll see, hi, first name, we would like you to attend this particular event. So it says, hi, John, we would like you to attend the Customer Success event at Washington Center on the 31st of May, 2016. And I can then preview the second recipient, and it says, hi, Casey, we would like you to attend the customer training session at Whispir HQ on the 1st of June, 2016. So it's simple as that to send out bulk messages using CSV and the bulk messaging tool. Now, this is really great if I want to send out really simple SMS and email comms, but the real power comes when you use these ADAT variables within a rich message. And I've actually got one that I've crafted earlier. So if I go back to my rich message studio, I've actually crafted up one of these templates previously. So if I click on my edit button, you'll notice that I've pre-composed this particular rich message that we saw earlier with those specific details. So you'll see here it says, hi, first name, last name. We would love to see you at our up-and-coming customer event. And I've got all those various details. ADAT details, ADAT where, time, date, so on and so forth. One of the other things you'll notice is that these variables can also be included not only within the component, but also within the more interactive components as well. So when I click on this particular map down here, I can dynamically populate the actual address of this particular location within the map dynamically. One of the things to be wary of as well is that not only should you edit the web content, but you should also be mindful that you need to edit the content within the email and mobile channels as well. And when you do send this message out via bulk messaging, that content will be dynamically populated across all channels, including the mobile channel as well. So let's see it in action. I'll go back to bulk message, and I've also, because I've saved that particular CSV file, I can click on that CSV file once more. I've actually created another CSV file called message populated. I'll click on next, and then click through. Now, rather than create a message from scratch, what I can do is I can select from an existing template. So here's my marketing template, and you'll see that it includes first name, last name, details, where, date. It also includes the ADAT web link to populate this as a rich message on the person's end device. So once I'm happy with this particular template, I can then click on next, and then I can preview what this content looks like over the various channels. So I can see here for recipient one, I've got Franco Trimboli. We would love to see you at our next customer event at the Washington Convention Center. And likewise, I can see that David Smith and Casey have received the message as well. And one of the things you'll notice is that because this content is dynamically populated from the CSV file, the content changes as I preview it. So you can see here the names change, the dates change, and in addition to that, the actual names of the events and the locations change as well. And the great thing about this is that it populates across all channels. So I can see that within my email, and I can see that within my web contents as well. Hi, Franco Trimboli, so on and so forth. And you can continue to do that across all the various recipients and see that content dynamically update in real time. So once I'm happy with that and I've previewed enough, I can click on the send button, and that will then use all of the content within the CSV file, effectively do a mail merge, to quote classic Microsoft Word capability, and then send that message out. And if I click on the status button, I can then see the success of that message. I can see that those three recipients have indeed received the message, both Casey, David, and Franco. And if I have a look at my mobile phone, I can now see that I've received a new message, and the mail merge is there. It says, marketing event, hi Franco Trimboli, we would love to see you at our next customer event at Washington Convention Center. Please click on this link for more information. I can click on that link, and the rich message will then load up, and you'll see that all that content is now populated. When will you be attending? I can say, yes, I will be attending. Do I have any dietary requirements? I'm vegan today and I would like to bring a colleague. And once again, you can see the content populated down here in the map, and I can send the response out. And once again, if I go back into Whispir, I should be able to see the contents of those details be sent back. And I can see that Franco has already replied yes. So that's it. It's as simple as that to send out an event invitation. And coupled with the power of bulk messaging, you can really utilize the power of not only event reminders, but also other use cases such as job dispatch and other appointment reminder capabilities, using what is a really simple capability, but very powerful for your customers and stakeholders. So we thank you for your time today, and thanks again.